Welcome inside the Mountain West Network studios. Jesse Kurtz alongside Ted Sundquist, the Mountain West football analyst, here to talk about Mountain West football Week 3 inside the West Division. Let's start with Fresno State. They're at the University of Colorado. The Bulldogs 2-0, fresh off their win over Cal Poly 41-25. The offense hasn't missed a beat. They've been spectacular. Defense, I think Tim DeRuyter would admit, got some work to do. But what I want to talk about is the special teams. Back-to-back weeks, they've had the Mountain West Special Teams Player of the Week. Last week, it was Isaiah Burse, tied a Mountain West Conference record, 2 punt returns for touchdowns. How big is it to be very solid in special teams when you've got a team that is as veteran-laden and as polished as Fresno State?
Well, nothing swings the momentum in a football game bigger than a great play on special teams. And certainly you mentioned Isaiah Burse last week with 2 big returns in the punt game for touchdowns. Outstanding job there. Garrett Swanson averaged 43 yards per punt. Pinned Cal Poly back inside the 20 twice. Last week or 2 weeks ago against Rutgers, a 56-yard kickoff return by Dylan Root took a late lead, 45-38, gave the Bulldogs great field position, which allowed that offense to tie the game and send it into overtime. Like you said, head coach Tim DeRuyter is not afraid to employ his starters on special team units. I think one of the reasons why the Bulldogs find themselves at 2-0 right now, especially in Week 1 against Rutgers in that big game, is because of special teams. And they go up against Pac-12 surprise CU Buffs at 2-0 as well. It will play a big part of the outcome of that football game.
Absolutely. The Bulldog offense averaging 40 points, or they've scored 40 or more points in 7 of their last contests. Bulldogs and Buffs kick things off at 11 o'clock Pacific time. That'll be broadcast by the Pac-12 networks. Moving on to Nevada at number 9, Florida State. Nevada 1-1, fresh off their win over Cal Davis, 36-7. Brian Polian, his first win as a head coach. Got to feel good. Cody Fajardo's been the do-it-all guy like we thought he would at the quarterback position. He's accounted for 5 of the 7 touchdowns for the Wolfpack so far this season. That's the good news. Can that be sustainable throughout an entire season when you put that much on that guy?
Well, I think so. In the pistol, it almost has to be. And when you look at it and compare it to last season, really, Cody Fajardo had thrown for 1 touchdown and run for 3 after 2 weeks in 2012. Stephon Jefferson, the great running back in their system there, he's gone. But he had 3 touchdowns in the first week as well. So I think that the offense can become more in tune as they get into the conference schedule and they kick that around. Fajardo was more efficient spreading the ball around last season, and the running game kind of kicked in when you saw more of Jefferson. There's no reason why I don't think that can happen with Kendall Brock as he gains confidence as the feature running back in the Wolfpack offensive scheme. If not, defenses are going to begin to key on Cody, and the read option style offenses need those multiple threats to move the football around. Someone's going to have to pick it up, because if it's all on his shoulders, it'll bog that system down.
Something to keep your eye on. Nevada has had 5 straight games where they've had a 100-yard rusher. Going to be tough going down to Tallahassee, taking on the Seminoles. Nevada and Florida State kick things off at 12:30 Pacific time. That will be broadcast by ESPN. Moving on to the UNLV Rebels. They face Central Michigan. UNLV 0-2. They lost to Arizona 58-13 in Week 2. Back-to-back losses against Minnesota and Arizona. Central Michigan seems like a good time to get the win. I would imagine this is one that you point to and say, let's get back on the winning track here.
Yeah, you would think so. Central Michigan got thumped by Michigan in Week 1 and then really struggled against New Hampshire to pull one out there at the end last week with a 4th quarter come-from-behind win. If Central Michigan still has quarterback problems this week, Bobby Hauck and the Rebels got to find a way to pressure that young signal caller in his first game on the road. UNLV has only 2 sacks right now, Jesse, in their first 2 games, but they lead the Mountain West Conference in total passing defense with only 90 yards per game. They can't let the Chippewas find their running game that's only averaging about 2.9 per carry. UNLV is -3 in the turnover margin right now. They're negative side in both of their first 2 games. I think they got to find a way for Tim Cornette to get involved in this football game and not put the games on the shoulder squarely of their quarterback, Nick Sherry.
Now, the Rebels, #1 in pass defense, like you mentioned, Ted. Back-to-back games, they've held opponents to under 100 yards passing. UNLV and Central Michigan kick things off at 7 o'clock Pacific time. That game will be broadcast by the Mountain West Network, powered by Campus Insiders. Moving on to San Jose State. They're one of 3 teams in this division that have a bye week. San Jose State lost to Stanford 34-13. What did the Spartans concentrate on this week? We saw them winning at Sac State. Thought they played decently well at Stanford, just a top 5 opponent kind of flexing its muscles. Where are they working to retool this week?
Yeah, you know, against Stanford, they were 3 of 5 on third down. They need to amp up their big playmaking ability, I think. When you think of the San Jose State Spartans, you think of them stretching the football field, throwing that ball downfield, getting big plays. Stanford kept them corralled a bit, and I thought they were a little bit more effective against Sac State in the big play category. But the difference in the level of defenses, you need to try and stretch the field more against Minnesota, in my opinion. Wide receiver Chandler Jones, Noel Grigsby, Jabari Carr, they got to create more after the catch. Right now they're averaging about 5.8 per attempt. That's 7th in the Mountain West Conference overall. They've got to catch that ball, turn up the field, and create some big plays on their own.
After a week off, San Jose State will be at Minnesota next week. Another team that's off, and it probably came at a good time. San Diego State, Rocky Long and the Aztecs lost in Columbus to Ohio State 42-7. They're 0-2. The big playmakers coming into the season, we thought it'd be Adam Dingwell returning it, starting at quarterback, Adam Moema. So far, that hasn't been the case. What is happening to San Diego State, and how can they get their big playmakers involved a little bit more?
Well, Jesse, I had a chance to do that game against Eastern Illinois 2 weeks ago, and to be honest with you, yeah, you can look at the quarterback position, the running back position, say they're not producing, but right now I think it's the offensive line. I really do. Dingwell doesn't appear comfortable in the pocket. He lacks poise and confidence. He's taking pressure straight up the gut, and therefore I think he's throwing the ball errantly. He does not have a good feeling of stepping up underneath his offensive line in that pocket and creating plays downfield. He can't set his feet. He's not finding the outlet route, and he suffered, like you said, a lot of drop balls. And Colin Lockett is a big reason, you know, why that offense was so successful last year. He's got to really clamp down and start making some plays. Moema's had the ankle problems. Again, offensive line not really moving people off the ball. Overall, I think that's where it's got to pick up. They've had to replace a few people on that interior offensive front. If those guys can gel and come together, they've got the playmakers. They've proven that in the past. San Diego State will get back on track.
Hawaii is the 3rd team that is off within the West Division. The Rainbow Warriors idle after losing to Oregon State 33-14. They're now 0-2 on the season. I know Norm Chow is putting a lot of focus this week at practice on the offensive side of the football.
Yeah, he really is. And a lot like Air Force, Hawaii is one of those offensive systems that depends on execution, timing, and it's very important that they stay on schedule. We know that Norm Chow wants to throw the football first and foremost, but they've got to be able to effectively run it as well on first down. Otherwise, teams like Southern Cal and Oregon State are going to tee off and put the pressure on Taylor Graham, which they've done effectively the last 2 weeks. 10 sacks against Hawaii quarterbacks, 4 interceptions. They're playing right now with 2 freshman running backs. They're only averaging about 1.64 yards per carry. They've got to figure out a way to come off the ball and effectively run it, to at least keep those defenses a little honest and not coming after the passing game down after down.
Hawaii next travels to Nevada to open up Mountain West play. That'll come up next week. For Ted Sundquist, I'm Jesse Kurtz. Thanks for logging on to the Mountain West Network.